Hello, Bobby Torres of Brightbox recording here, critiquing subscriber mixes, episode 6. So before we begin, I just want to remind you that mixing is an art form and it's extremely subjective. All of this is just my opinion and just my first gut reaction to what I feel will help improve your mixes with minimal tweakage and minimal fuss. Now, if you're interested in submitting one of your mixes for critique, there are detailed instructions below in the video's description. And mix number 1 comes from Mr. Adam. Let's check it out. Okay, well, Adam, I really dig what I'm hearing. Actually, I really like the riffage, and I like that panning action that you had going on there with, the one guitar out of the left speaker playing while the other one stops. Love that kind of stuff. Now, you mentioned to me in your email that you're having issues blending all 3 vocal sounds that you have in your production. I guess you have either 3 different singers or 3 different vocal styles happening at once. You're having trouble blending them and making them work without stepping over the toes of the other instruments in your mix. And what you're describing is completely normal, and I have the solution for you. It has nothing to do with anything fancy like EQ, compression, or anything like that. It's all gonna come down to basic, boring, dry volume automation. Let me explain. Let's say you have your lead vocal or your vocal that's happening within the verse. Let's just say that's vocalist A. And then all of a sudden vocalist B comes in and adds a layer on top of vocalist A, and let's say the 3rd quarter of the verse. What most people will tend to do is try to over EQ one of these vocal tracks to make them fit together, when in reality, all you have to do is just automate the volume of your main lead vocal down a little, so that way when the second vocal kicks in, the apparent loudness and the apparent presence of the 2 vocals is kind of equal to the one vocal that was happening solo on its own earlier in the verse. Another trick you could do is, let's say you have a background element that's just in mono, but you want a nice wide vocal sound. You can use a mono to stereo delay and delay just one of the sides by 20 milliseconds, so it creates a natural hole in your 3rd vocal sound, so it leaves a space in the middle for your other 2 vocal tracks or your other vocal track that's happening in the middle as the lead. Nothing fancy. I don't want you overthinking this. A lot of times when people struggle with issues like this, it's always something very basic like volume automation. So Adam, I hope that helps and points you in the right direction, and keep me posted on your production because I really like what I'm hearing. Okay, mix number 2 here is from Nunu. Okay, well, Nunu, I like what I'm hearing. I really dig the melodic black metal flavor that you have going on with the track. You mentioned in your email that you're struggling with the classic issue here, guitar tone clarity. Now, right off the bat, I'm gonna say that the main issue that I hear is that the guitars, unfortunately, are not really super tight and super in sync with one another. And I know you've heard me say it a million times before, a lot of times it comes down to either the editing or the tracking or the actual performance itself. Now, the performance sounds really good for black metal. The riffs sound clear. I can understand what's happening as far as the riffs are concerned, but if you want a crisp, super clear guitar tone where you can make out every little nuance, you have to go in there and make sure, listen to your guitars, the 2 tracks on their own, and make sure that they're really in sync with one another and that they're not pushing and pulling the beat. There's no magic formula or magic EQ setting or magic compressor setting or magical plugin that's gonna all of a sudden make your guitar sound clear. Now, like I said, from what I hear, it mainly comes down to just the way they were recorded. It's not your gear, it's not your interface, it's probably not even the guitar itself. It's just that extra work and attention to detail that most people don't want to take the time to do that makes a world of difference in the big picture of a production. And always remember, all pro producers take this step, so we all have to do the same. So Nunu, thank you for your submission, and keep me posted. I would like to hear on your progress on your future productions. Okay, and our next mix here comes from Oscar. Okay, well, Oscar, I love the sound of the production as a whole. It's got a nice, hugeness to it. I love that snare sound, that nice fat, hard-hitting snare. And I really dig the guitar tone. Now, you mentioned in your email that you're having issues with instruments, stepping on top of one another, and that you're concerned you don't want to have to spend any more money on third-party plugins. And dude, believe me, you don't have to spend a lot of money on plugins. Me personally, I only use a handful, and most of the plugins I've been using for the past 12 years. I'm not one of these guys that's constantly buying new plugins. I only use what I need. So if you think you need new plugins in order to achieve a better mix, it's certainly not true. Now, as far as instruments stepping on top of one another, to me, your mix actually sounds very clear. The one thing I'm noticing is that there's something going on with the stereo field as far as your guitars are concerned. I don't know if they're maybe panned in slightly, or you have like a stereo imager on your master bus or something like that. If you do, take my advice, just hard pan your guitars. If you only have a left and right guitar, hard left, hard right. A lot of people get caught up in this thing where they try to pan their guitars in for mono compatibility, and in my opinion, it's just unnecessary. And most pro metal engineers and producers hard pan their guitars. Watch some mix breakdowns of some of your favorite pro mixes, and I'm willing to bet those guitars are hard panned. So that would be my main note here, is just simplify your panning, because again, for some reason, at least with the track that you sent me, it sounds like something is pushing the stereo field in slightly, whether it's through your own panning and you're using an imager plugin that's really messing with the phase. So let me know and keep me posted on your progress, and great work. Okay, and our next mix here comes from James. Okay, James, excellent job with your mix. Now, you mentioned in your email that you want to know how you could achieve that super duper hard-hitting, crisp production that pro producers achieve during breakdown sections. And just based on what I've heard so far with your mix, there are two main things I want to point out to you. If you want that type of sound and that type of impact that the pros all somehow achieve, remember this: you're going to want to make sure that your editing is spot on. And I mean every little detail, every little stop. You're gonna wanna make sure that your guitars and bass are in the pocket with your drums. All those little details where maybe one guitar is pushing the beat and one guitar is pulling the beat and the bass is ahead of the guitar and the kick drum's behind, all of that stuff that you don't really pay attention to while you're tracking will affect the impact of the breakdown in the final mix. And even though your editing sounds pretty good already, you're gonna wanna take it up just a few more notches if you're looking to acquire what you mentioned in your email. The second thing I wanna point out is that with your guitar tone, make sure you're using an overdrive pedal just to clean up the low end and really help with the pick attack with your guitar tone. I'm not sure if you're using one, but to my ears, it sounds like you're not. It sounds like just a straight up amp tone, which is totally fine. But if you want that typical, super tight breakdown sound that you mentioned, make sure you're using a tube screamer in line with your amp sim, or even if you're recording with a live amp, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that you want to boost before the front end of your amp. So those are my two main points: a boost before the front end of your amp, and make sure that editing is super duper machine gun tight, at least for the style of production that you're looking for. So James, excellent work, and keep me posted on your progress. I'll be curious to hear your next production. Our final mix here comes from Simon. Let's check it out. All right, Simon, mix sounds great. Now, you mentioned in your email that you want to create a mix that's a little less clogged sounding, and you specifically pointed out the end of the track when those lead guitar layers kicked in. And again, what you're describing is a classic issue that we all face as mix engineers. It's very difficult to get all of these layers to be heard while so much is going on, especially within a busy metal mix like what we have here. And much like I mentioned previously in this video, automation is your best friend. Now, I know automation is boring. It's not as fun as an EQ plugin or a fancy compressor plugin or multiband limiting or stereo widening. I know it's not fun, but here's the thing. all of your favorite mixers that produce pro major label records, they're all masters of automation. And let me give you a real world example that'll help this specific mix. At the point in the song where those leads kick in, those rhythm guitars don't have to be as loud as they were before the leads kicked in. So in other words, you can create extra space by simply lowering your rhythm guitars by maybe a dB or two when those lead guitars kick in, so you have extra space for your lead guitars. It's such simple automation moves like these that make a world of difference that seem almost too obvious to work, but believe me, they really do. And I do a ton of automation within my own mixes in order to breathe life, excitement, and extra space for all of the individual instruments when they need to be heard. So the good news for you is I don't hear anything major going on as far as EQ. Just take the time to use some basic volume automation, and that alone will help declog your mix. So Simon, I hope that helps, and keep me posted on your progress. So I would just like to shout out and thank everyone for submitting their mixes. And remember, if you've submitted the mix, be patient, I'll get to it eventually within one of these upcoming videos. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And if you'd like to pick up some Frightbox merch, there's a link below to my merch store in this video's description. I've got t-shirts, mugs, and more stuff on the way. Now, there are so many things that home studio owners tend to gloss over throughout the duration of a production. And I don't want this for you. I want you to truly achieve pro level results with the gear you already have. You can download my polished production checklist where I point you in the right direction, again, so you can get right to creating the results you really want within your home studio. There's a link below in this video's description. Until next time, happy mixing.